What do Florence 1962, l'artisan Zonka and Seville à l'Aube, Guerlain L'Homme Idéal Cologne and Caron Third Man, Prada Amber pour Homme Intense, Gucci Guilty Absolute, Guerlain Derby, MFK Absolute pour les Soins, Mugler Cologne and Helmut Lang Eau de Parfum have in common? They are basically all at least talked about as being discontinued, apparently discontinued, some of them definitely been discontinued. And this video is basically going to be me kind of trying to semi-articulate some thoughts on a few different topics that are all sort of interrelated. That is discontinued perfumes, how I react to that happening. I'm going to be talking about vintage perfumes versus modern perfumes. What's better, what's not, doesn't make a difference. Reformulations I will touch on, and all related to this, the subject of backup bottles. Now, I want to state very clearly here that whatever viewpoint I express in this video about any of these topics is not the right viewpoint. It's right for me, but for some it won't be. There is definitely no wrong or right. Like taste in perfume is subjective, the way you think about all these topics is subjective. So I'm going to let's talk about discontinuation first, because I just showed you a bunch of well-loved perfumes that I am pretty sure when I finish those bottles, I will not be able to find again, or I may not have the will or the energy to chase up another bottle. So that'll segue a little bit into buying backups, vintage chasing, and so on. Essentially, my view with discontinuation in perfume is if I can no longer buy a perfume I love once I've finished the bottle, then I just suck it up and move on, because I kind of think that even though there is so many mediocre perfume releases, especially in the last few years, there is also just literally too many perfumes to try. And I'm still optimistic that the more I try, the more chance I have of finding another love. Like I still have no trouble finding perfumes to love. The thing is that like I have a relatively small collection of bottles compared to some other fragrance enthusiasts. I have 70 perfume bottles. I love most of them, and I just figure I'm here to enjoy perfume, and my view is basically that I'll enjoy it while it's here. I'm definitely not into hoarding a perfume when I know I'm going to be running out of it. I think there's something connected, and I'm no expert, but there is perhaps a psychological thing going on there about not being able to let go of things. Thankfully for me personally, I am very much into knowing that I am going to really savor these last several sprays of Absolute pour les Soins, but I'm not going to not spray it with the fear that I'm about to run out of it. I'm just going to enjoy it while it's here, and have that wonderful memory of how great this perfume is, and hopefully I will continue sampling all new perfumes, and one day I might find something that I treasure as much as I treasure this perfume. And that goes to all the perfumes I love that are discontinued or I won't be able to buy again. And, you know, like that, this kind of leads me into buying backup bottles. I personally never buy backup bottles. And the reason for this is that I kind of think, if I'm being realistic, I'm 52 years old and I have 70 bottles of perfume. I have had some bottles in this collection that I've owned for at least nearly 7 years, and I still have not emptied them. And that's even wearing them at least once every couple of months and making decants and samples for people. So realistically speaking, I can't imagine getting through one of my bottles. It's like, thankfully for me, a lot of these discontinued bottles, a lot of them still have quite a lot of juice left in them. And I feel like as long as I don't die in the next decade, I will get several years of use from them, unless something happens and for whatever reason I drastically reduce my wardrobe and my perfume wardrobe and rotate, less than 10 bottles. That's really the only realistic way for me that I can get through it. And, I honestly don't see myself being able to get through any of these bottles anytime soon. So for that reason alone, I will not buy backup, because the other part to that is that if I do, for whatever reason, finish the bottle, there's also a chance with me and the way my taste evolves and changes that I might get to the end of that bottle and I might find myself with one or two backup bottles and realize I don't love this perfume as much as I used to. And now I have to do something with these bottles, sell them or get rid of them. I mean, it's a minor thing, but my head goes there. So that's like my reasoning to not buy backup bottles. When it comes to this whole debate of vintage versus modern perfume, again, I want to repeat and be very firm in this, is that there is no right or wrong, okay? So you can love vintage, absolutely, and think modern stuff is no good because it's subjective, like our taste is subjective. Now, personally speaking, I have never I've actually had the experience of being able to compare some of my favorite perfumes, vintage versus modern. For instance, especially the first ones that come to my head are from Hermes. Now, I got to originally sample an older style version of Bel Ami and then smell a modern version, and I actually prefer the modern version. And the same goes for Eau de Hermes. Like, for me, the modern Eau de Hermes is my favorite, and I've smelled two other older versions. Now, honestly, I just really don't have the energy or the will to go chasing vintage perfumes. Like, I've had the opportunity to sample quite a few vintage perfumes, and people have very generously sent me samples of some of their favorite vintage perfumes, and admittedly they were nice, most of them, but not enough for me to go, I must track down a bottle of this perfume. To me, it's just a matter of, well, I'm kind of really happy with what I've got. Now, there is that side where it's a more people take a more dogmatic approach rather than a pragmatic approach about vintage. They're kind of convinced that vintage was better than modern, and there is this belief that materials were better. There were materials used in those perfumes that are no longer used in modern perfumes, and that's fine, because if that's what your nose is smelling, that's fine, as long as it doesn't get into a little bit of like I have seen instances where there is a little bit of dogma around vintage is superior to modern, and again, it's personal opinion, but I take the view that, yes, of course, there's going to be really great vintage perfumes that have not been improved upon, but there is also a lot of vintage perfumes that didn't survive for various reasons, but the fact is that they're not being made anymore. If they are being made, then we're getting into reformulation talk. But I guess my viewpoint is that there was a time when old perfume was being made where they presumably perfumers did not have access to the array of aroma chemicals now that is available to them. Like I'm of the belief that the palette is way more expanded, and it really comes down to whether I think perfumers have the skill to do with something with it that older master perfumers had. Like, again, it's not a black and white thing for me, and I'm actually excited about the potential of new perfume rather than living in the past a little bit and convincing myself that perfume will never be as good as it was 40 years ago, because it actually doesn't matter. I didn't start collecting perfume 40 years ago, and the perfume I've smelled that is 40 years old hasn't blown my socks off enough to think that it's any better than what I have now. Remember the word subjectivity. Moving on to reformulations, it's very simple for me. Like I keep this very simple. I'm not going to cry and moan about reformulations. I detest batch variation talk. It's as simple as this. If I finish a bottle of perfume and I love it enough to go and purchase a new bottle of perfume, of this same perfume, might have slightly different packaging, but it's being sold as this perfume. And if that perfume does not smell like this, or close to it, if there are things about that perfume due to reformulation that makes me lose my love, I simply will not buy it again. I'll get rid of that perfume and that's it. I honestly believe that consumers should, let their money do the talking in this case. And if perfume companies are going to reformulate, basically not so much because of restrictions to material, but just to make it increase their profit margin, for instance, you can get cynical about that, but essentially trust your nose. If a new reformulation really smells that different and inferior to you, then don't buy it anymore. Like, don't worry about it and look for something new. Like I said, there are thousands of releases each year. There is a very good chance that you're going to find something new that you like. Okay, I think that's about it for my rant today. I hope that didn't come across too aggressively. I just wanted to give you my views on those particular topics because sometimes I get asked about it, or, have I tried this, or why don't you like this, and all of that kind of thing. I will say one other thing going back to vintage perfumes. Now, I'm never been in the habit of promoting any perfume brand that basically has built its reputation on making and marketing clones of original popular perfumes. So you'll never hear me talk about clone perfumes, but I think there is a space for them in the market for people that really miss their favorite discontinued perfumes. If clone companies really wanted to find the customer base, they would really focus their attention on making the best possible replica of a perfume that you cannot buy anymore. That's just my take on that as well. So I hope that's kind of cleared some things up about my views on different things. I'm never going to be a vintage head. I'm never going to get backup bottles. Reformulations don't scare me. Some reformulations are absolutely fine. Might smell different, but the perfume is still good. And I certainly don't subscribe to a superiority complex when it comes to vintage over modern stuff. You like what you like. It always comes down to your personal subjective taste. Okay, that's enough from me. Bye.